We are joined by Dr. Frank Igwe. Excuse us for the technical difficulties. We're here now. We're back. So, hello, brother. How you doing? Welcome to a seat at the table. Thank you
Appreciate
for
it.
joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes. So, I was given a brief intro, and basically, what we do here, as I explained to you before, very organic, laid back. But nothing's changed from 2009 except a little more gray.
All right. A little more gray. I got to cover mine up, brother.
So yeah, for those that don't know, we were part of the original class of the Martin Luther King Leadership Development Institute here locally.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
how how we initially met,
12
and
years.
yeah, some great times, some great individuals that was in that class. So we're often spread out. We're spread all over the place.
Still
And
doing
so,
great things, though.
yeah, yeah. So a lot of us are still staying connected, even if only but for social media. But we're still here and trying to bring resources again to individuals that are in need of services, quite frankly, in need of resources, etc. So I just want to talk about you. I mean, we can start off talking about City Aces. We can talk about how your core values and belief around African Americans and shaping the future of tech. We can talk about the health crisis and how we should overcome or could overcome that through highlighting viable resources, your background in supply chain and diversity. I mean, so you loaded, So as I said, I'm just glad to have you on the show and just want people to have an opportunity. They see these buses going around, with your company name on it and all that here in Harrisburg. And so I wanted you to talk about, why you thought it was necessary, to start your organization in the field of health, talking about home health care and other viable services in the health field. So I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Man, that's beautiful. Like City Aces, that's a blast from the past, brother. That's been like 11, 12 years since we did that. But
I
City
remember you. I do. Hey, listen, I do a little bit of research from time to time.
But you remember, City Aces really started from the MLK class. That's where the genesis came from. Like
Yeah,
that's where the idea came from.
yeah.
City Aces, for those who don't know, stands for Athletes Changing Expectations. So the whole point of that was we'll take professional athletes from NFL, NBA, NCAA, and we'll go into inner city at risk communities and would hold shows with these athletes touting the value of education. So that's where this whole thing started from. It was a phenomenal success as far as publicity and as far as being able to get in the rooms with people who actually wield power. But that was my first successful organization. From that came Moravia Health. Because one thing we always said this in class, Karl, we could have everything in line, but if you don't have the economics behind you, then nothing else really matters, right? Because money can transform a community. And my whole thing was,
That's right.
how can we do well? How can we do well by doing good, right? So prior to Moravia coming through, I was a consultant. I was a business management consultant. I was living the quote unquote quote great life, right? So I'm making money, right? I'm teaching billionaire companies how to save $1 million here and $1 million there, but I really wasn't satisfied personally. So my whole thing was, if I die tomorrow, what would my story be? How did I give back to my community? Right. So that's where Moravia came from. I wanted to do well by doing good. And in our community, I mean, we have all these health disparities, right? We don't have the right kind of home care that's needed. A lot of us don't know what's available to us. So Moravia Health really started as an educational tool, right? Because our community, our people did not know that there were programs out there that would actually hire you with the right training, of course, hire you to take care of your auntie, your uncle, your mother, your brother, which you do for free anyway. So our whole thing was people, right? I mean, what's the Bible say? My people perish for lack of knowledge. In the beginning, that's what we were setting out to do. Let's give them the knowledge about these programs. Let's enroll people in these services, right? And so at the same time that we're helping them give their family members higher quality of life, we're also transforming them economically, because now this son, this daughter, this niece, this nephew is also an economic source for the entire family, right? Because I firmly believe you can have the best ideas in the world, but if you don't have the economics behind it, I mean, it's all for nothing. We're not going to transform our community. And so that's where Moravia Health came from.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So talk about how you started out. Where did you start, and how do you strategically expand? I know you're expanding, of course.
Right.
Every great business person, businessman in this sense, looks for expansion in 3, 6, 9 month or year plans. So where did you start? Where did you expand to first? Where do you look to expand to next?
Oh, for sure. So first of all, we have about 2,000 clients right now. That's our current census. And it all goes back to City Aces, Athletes Changing Expectations. Our last show was with the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore on a road. If you travel from here to Baltimore, from here to DC, you will see on I-95, there's a street named Moravia Road. That was where our last show was, right? So you can call it divine intervention. You can call it God speaking to me, but I hear this voice. Remember the name Moravia, because it's going to do good in the world. So that's where Moravia Health came from. So I was in the wilderness for about a year just contemplating, right? How can I do well for the community and still make a living? So we started here in Philadelphia. I remember it. It was in 2012. I started the paperwork. We didn't receive our first client until 2014. I wish I could sit up here and be like, I'm so smart, I'm so intelligent, I'm just so great. I can't do that, man, because you can do whatever if God doesn't bless it, then it's for nothing. So we started off with one, but just like Jesus with the loaves of bread and the fish, it's like it just started multiplying organically, right? Word started getting out. Oh, one of us is doing something, because there weren't that many minorities who were actually in this field. They didn't look like you. They didn't look like me. So when word started getting out, I bet on my people. I was like, once our people hear about this, our people will rally, yo. They will fall behind us. So word started getting out, right? So you go from one client to 10 to 100. And then each time I bet it all on black. I always say, push all your chips to the middle, bet on black.
Right.
Start investing in the buses, right? So at the end of the month, I'm broke because I put all my money in the advertising. My people kept coming back. They kept reaffirming the decision we made. So we started in Philly, get the first 100, get the next 500. But then we started realizing that it's not just Philadelphia where this need is. I mean, Harrisburg was our second office, right? Tish Jackson, right there on Walnut Street, 211 Walnut Street. You start finding other people with shared vision. So all of a sudden, we do the same thing in Harrisburg. You go from one client to 10 to 50 to 100 to 150, right? And then as people come in, they become disciples. They become apostles. They become evangelists, right? They start speaking of this Black-owned company that has service that is extraordinary. If you didn't know we were Black, you'd be like, wow, this.
You'd be like, you got to be Black.
You got to be Black.
Like you say, you got to be Black.
Right. And so our whole motto was Black excellence.
That's right.
Our parents always tell us we got to work twice as hard just to be considered equal. And so my whole thing is when people see us, I need y'all to be proud of us.
Right.
Like you see that these are people from your community doing the damn thing. I want you to be proud of us. And that's the whole genesis of Moravia. We're currently in 10 locations now. We're still growing. We're still expanding. I mean, if you're out there, whether white, Black, Asian, Spanish, it doesn't matter. I mean, join the movement. Moravia is a movement. We got everybody here. This is a Rainbow Coalition, brother. It's a new Rainbow Coalition.
And so explain exactly. So going into home health care and other opportunities. So if there are individuals that are out here that are wondering about Moravia and how they can get involved, how do they get you? How do they get involved? How do they get connected? How do they just talk to you to find out if there's young aspiring entrepreneurs here at the University of Penn or Oklahoma or where some from your old stomping grounds? How do they get in touch with you? Or not you personally, but your organization?
Look, if needed be, I mean, I'm easy to find. I'm not
Yeah.
hard to find. So I mean, I pride myself on people being able to see and touch me,
Mhm.
right? Because a lot of times people don't have. I'm not saying everybody. I mean, actually, I think that narrative is overstated where there's not enough black men because there's good black men in the community.
That's right.
Right, we're all over the place. But for those who don't, even the ones who do, they need to see what they look like successful as far as entrepreneurship goes, right? So I make it easy for them to bring their kids in if they need me to talk to them because I need to give these kids a target. And that's one of the things I always tell people, Moravia, it's not about money, because I mean we give most of the money to our workers, we put it back in the community. It's not about the money. It's about creating targets for people to aspire for, right? It's about changing the narrative. We're not all drug dealers. We're not all, we're not all clowns and coons. Of course, we got those in the community, but we also have successful people like you, brother Karl.
Uh-oh.
I mean, so it's easy to find. I mean, you can Google us at moraviahealth.com. Either one of the branches, call the closest one near you. I mean, the one in Harrisburg, you can call 717-800-22222. If you want to get the one in Philly, you can call me direct, 215-717-8650. Or just email contact@moraviahealth.com. So if you need it, if you need me, I mean, like I said, I'm not hard to find.
All right, I appreciate that. What we're going to do now is take a commercial break. And then on the other side of this, we're going to talk a bit about your background in supply chain and diversity, equity, inclusion, because those are all buzzwords now, but they really mean something when you're in those positions, those assigned positions. So let's take a quick commercial break. And on the other side of this commercial, we'll be back to talk to Dr. Frank Igwe, my man, the president of Morania Health. All right, and welcome back. We're here with Dr. Frank Igwe, the president, CEO of Morania Health. We were talking before we left about overall supply chain, diversity, equity, inclusion, social justice, all those buzzwords that have been going on in, throughout the United States, we'll say, since the brother Floyd killing, murder. There's real people behind these movements, though, especially in positions. So not only is there a social equity movement with regards to words and policy statements, etc., there's actually people like yourself who were in these positions before to really push the supply chain, push access, equitable access, to becoming more involved and engaged with companies overall, but with our communities in particular. So talk a bit about your experience around that diversity, equity, and inclusion title, if you will.
Right. Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, Karl. I mean, I haven't been involved in supply chain. It's been almost 10 years.
Yeah.
But I will say this, when I was involved, there weren't that many of us in positions of leadership. People who are the decision makers in the room, when you look around the room, we're not there. So, I mean, it almost goes back to your podcast, a seat at the table. Oftentimes, there is no seat for us at the table. So I advocate, if possible, don't even have a seat at the table, create your own table. Because I don't want to say people aren't taking diversity and inclusion seriously, but my experience, and this is just my experience when I was there, they had quotas to fill, right? So you have a contract where you have to have at least one minority. And oftentimes they would tell you, we just need a minority on this contract. And they think they're doing you a favor by saying, this is easy money, just put your name on there. And, you collect a check at the end of it, but you're really not doing anything. I mean, that has psychological impact. And I feel that could be different if we had more people, more diversity, more different viewpoints in the room making those decisions. I don't know how we're going to change that. I think we need to get more people in STEM if it's not already happening. But my experience, it wasn't really positive.
Yeah.
And diversity is needed, right? This whole, I mean, when you even talk about affirmative action, I always tell people who don't understand why it's important. I'm not going to say all white people are racist, right? That's a shallow way of thinking. The deeper way of thinking is, I'm a black man. I know you, Karl, because I mean we came up in the same circles. The people I'm around are usually black. So my whole thing is I'm gonna hire people who are just like me, right? So you talk about white people who chances are most of their circles are white. And it's been this way for 400 years, right? So you're talking generation to generation to generation of this wealth being passed down, right? Amongst the same circles. A lot of times they're not even consciously biased. They're just like, I'm hiring Steven. Steven's my friend. I've known Steven all my life, right? So it takes affirmative action to say you've known Steven all your life, but we need to give these people who've been kept out of the system for so long, we need to give them a seat at the table, so to speak. So unless that really happens and it's not just lip service, I think we're just really going around, we're spinning our wheels. I feel like we need to have that seat at the table, create our own table. And then once we get in there, we need to actually reach down and pull more people in. Affirmative action shouldn't exist. What do I mean? It should be so commonplace that it's not needed, right? But at this particular time, we still need it until things change. I don't know how it's changed in the last 10 years, but when I was there, we needed help. We needed help. We needed people who were in the rooms as decisions were being made. I didn't see that while I was there.
And I believe it's still, as I always say, if you have no food in the house and someone knocks on your door and brings a can of baked beans in, that's better than having no food in the house. But it's still not adequate.
Right.
So I say that to simply say there are people that are there, hence at the table. But if you're in these roles, and I continue to say this when I talk to companies, a lot of healthcare organizations that I speak to, and their VPs and some of their presidents, quite frankly, when we're having these conversations, I'm direct with them, the bankers, whoever it might be. It's okay, and it's welcome to create this position of diversity, equity, and inclusion. But if you're going to create this position in one specific area, and he or she, which is typically a black person or a white woman, does not have a support staff, a budget, and decision-making powers, is all for naught.
For nothing, brother.
Right. And so from my perspective, it's one thing to create this position. And I firmly believe that it should not only be one position. If you have various agencies or departments within your organization, each agency and or department should have a diversity, equity, and inclusion person assigned to it. Because there's, with power, decision-making power.
It's so disappointing because you meet these vice presidents of diversity and you're like, okay, I need a decision made, right? I need you to hire this person. This person, I mean, how many times have I done this? This person is overly qualified. So I go to the director of diversity and then inevitably it gets pushed to a secretary. It gets put in a queue, right? Yeah. So the person is really superficial in the sense that they have the title, they can't pull the trigger on something, right? They can't make a decision. Ultimately go to somebody above them. Not so in Moravia, right? Everyone in here who has the title has the power. And I empower my people. Whether it's black, white, Spanish, or Asian, we hire good people, but the people have the power in this organization to make the call. It's not just, window dressing, which I saw far too often in corporate when I was there.
Yeah, and so that's something that drives you as a leader of your organization. And I'm sure, what type of feedback do you get from some of your VPs? What type of feedback do you get from some of your supervisors or directors? What are they saying about, not your leadership, but in terms of how they're proud to be part of helping the company grow because it's benefiting the masses, not just merely the chosen few?
Right. You actually have to get people who see the vision, right? Because as the leader, and first of all, we talk about diversity in terms of race. You need diversity in terms of gender as well.
Yeah.
Most of the people around me are female. They're women, because women complete the circle. Because as a man, I'm conditioned by society and by life to look at a picture or a situation from one viewpoint. A woman can look at it from an entirely different viewpoint. So when you put what you see versus what they see, You put it together, you get the full picture. So the people here love it because I truly value them. I value their thoughts. I value their opinions. Because if you don't get, and this is why diversity is important for any company, because you could look at the same problem. If I tell you 1 and 1 equal 2, and I've been saying that all my life, a woman or a person of color or any other diverse category could say 1 and 1 doesn't always equal 2. Sometimes 1 and 1 equals 11. And then for the first time, you're looking at the problem differently. I've always done 1 and 1 equals 2, but 1 and 1 can be 11. And you see the problem from a different perspective. And so my staff, to get back to your question, they love it here because they have power, just not in words, but in actual reality. They see the growth and they take pride because this is something you could literally look at everything we've done and pinpoint how they have helped me every step of the way to help this thing go. So it's not my company. I always don't say it's my company. It's our company. Yeah. It's our thing.
Yeah. So if you were presenting Urbania to the first time lookers or those that are seeing you for the first time, or hearers of you and the organization, not your organization, but the organization, what would you say about it? How would you hope that our viewers can help you expand the mission and vision of service throughout the Commonwealth and beyond? How would you recruit us?
First of all, it's FUBU. I mean, if you know, you know. You understand. That's number one. But secondly, we're looking for good people always. That's one thing I always tell people. At Moravia, there's a place for you. There is a seat at the table, right? We just need people who are honest. We need people who are passionate. We need people who care about the community, right? We try to put you where you will soar and excel. If you've got people who love being out in the world, in the community, we're not going to put them in the office. If you got people who are office people, don't like being out in the world, in the community, we try to get good people. There's the old story of Michael Jordan. It's actually a true story. So, so Portland, excuse me for bear with me while I talk about that. I love basketball. So Portland had Clyde Drexler at the time, and they drafted a center ahead of Michael Jordan named Sam Bowie.
He's local. He is local.
Is he?
You know the story. He's Lebanon. Yeah, he's local.
So you know the story.
Go ahead. Go.
All right, so there's a story, and they're like, yo, there's this dude named Michael Jordan. Like, he's the greatest athlete we've ever seen. But they're like, yo, we got Clyde Drexler. We're going to draft Sam Bowie. We need a center. So the guy's like, look, draft Michael Jordan and play him at center if that's what you need. So what am I saying? Moravia is looking for athletes. If you're good, if you're passionate, we will find a place for you. We will draft you as a guard and play you at center if that's what we have to do. All we need are people who are passionate, who love the community, and who love the company and will just give us everything they have, and that's it. The company will give it back to you.
Yeah.
You give us the love right back.
Before you know, you'll have sneakers named after your company. That's right. That's it. But more, so you actually go into the homes, you send services in, you help community or those that are providing, as you said earlier, for those who may have tuned in a bit late, those individuals that are pretty much already providing the services for their loved ones, at home, you basically help them get paid for doing that which they're doing already. Sure. And I don't mean to minimize it.
All right.
But
there's levels. So there are people who already receive the services. First of all, if you're not with Moravia Health as a home care agency, you need to stop that. You need to come on home. Do that right now or call in the morning. So if you already have services, we already top whatever you're dealing with. Whatever company you're with, Moravia will beat them 10 out of 10 times. But for those who don't know, remember, in the beginning, we were mainly an educational source because people in the community didn't know what was available to them, right? So the first thing we do when we go out to these health fairs, we explain, sir, ma'am, this is what's available to you. The hardest part of that is getting people to believe that it's real. Once that happens, we go into their house, we help them walk step by step, we help them get enrolled in the process. So all you have to give us is time. You give us 2 to 3 months of your time, and we give you the next 20 years, right? So we get them enrolled in the process. We have an entire enrollment team, and we walk them through
this. There's a lot, and I've dealt with friends that had the need for services, home healthcare services. But one of the things was, well, we don't want to sign over. They want to know about all of our business. They want to know about our social security. We can't have X amount in the bank. We can't have, whatever the case may be. How is that financial side? Because that's scary to a lot of people.
Right.
If, like what I'm assuming is that the state, and I'm limited on my knowledge, so jump in wherever, the state wants to come in, and if you make a certain amount of money, like a care facility, if you will.
Right.
I have more experience with a care facility, with care facilities. If you, they basically take over the finances in essence, in Medicare, Medicaid, whatever it might be. Anything that left over, they may put it in an account, but the account can't go over a certain amount of money. Explain the difference between home health care and a care facility, or more in particular, your health home health care organization.
Right. So that's actually a really good question. Because when we first started, we were dealing with everything. We were dealing with private pay, we were dealing with insurance, we were dealing with Medicaid, we were dealing with Medicaid waivers. But over time, we narrowed our particular services down just to Medicaid and Medicaid waivers. So if you're in Medicaid waivers, 100% of the time we can help you. To be on Medicaid itself, there's a certain financial threshold that you can't exceed. I believe that threshold is 21, either 21 or
on it.
Huh?
I said we won't quote you on it. So
yeah, don't quote me on it. It's between $2,100. I think it's $2,400 a month that your income can't exceed. Because if you exceed that, then you don't qualify for Medicaid. As far as the home ownership goes into calculation of assets. But if you're already on Medicaid, then you've already gone through those hurdles, because to get on Medicaid, you actually have to go through that process once before, even before you come to Moravia Health. But our enrollment team has all these numbers. They have all the facts. And before we submit anything to the state, we review this with you. We tell you what the point by point bullets that you have to know. This is the limit. This is what you can qualify for. And we're honest with you, right? Sometimes you make too much money that we can't, get you enrolled in the program, but we give you other options, because as the old saying goes, we want you to get home care, even if it's not with us. If it's not with us on the Medicaid side, we have other people that we know will take either private pay, will take Medicare, or there are other programs involved that actually do involve people who make more money than the Medicaid cutoff. So we help 60, we're a resource. So if you're not going to be with us, we're not just going to leave you high and dry. I mean, we'll find out where we can place you and make sure you got the services that you need.
It's an education piece again. We appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
And I see we're embarking up on our hour. We're about 45 minutes in. So what we're going to do is take another quick commercial break, and we'll hit the last segment. Then I'll make sure we stay within that time frame. I thank you again for those of you joining us. We are talking with Dr. Frank Igwe from Moravia Health Services, Healthcare. Oh, hello, and welcome back again. All right, Dr. Igwe, we're going to wrap it up. But before we do, I want to talk about the health crisis that we had, that we believe we've been coming out of, but something that might be on the horizon as well. So how are you dealing with, and from your perspective, the COVID situation, where we were, where we currently find ourselves, and what the prediction is, what the future may be predicting, meaning the numbers are beginning to increase? And I'm not asking you to speak as a COVID virus expert, but just as the leader of your organization.
Well, I mean, I almost feel like I can speak as an expert, because I had COVID myself when it first hit back in March. So, I mean, COVID is real. If you're out there listening, please get vaccinated. I understand the history. The government hasn't been good to Black folks when it comes. I get it. I've heard it all, but COVID is real. And not only was COVID real, I had the long COVID, the thing with the brain fog and muscle aches. The only thing that relieved my symptoms, to be honest, was the vaccine. So I suffered for 11 months. So when I tell you this thing is real, you don't want it. This thing hits like nothing I've ever experienced before in my life. As far as the company goes, overnight, everything had to change, right? So a lot of home care agencies didn't make it because when COVID hit, it laid everything bare. You had to be able to pivot on the spot or your company would perish. So overnight, we went from, and this is difficult because we're a hands-on industry. And all of a sudden, you go from being hands-on to everything is hands-off. Everything had to be electronic. We're used to our nurses and our aides going out, even just filling out paperwork. People used to come into the office or would go to people's homes. All of a sudden, everything had to be electronic, right? So that was the big thing that we had to deal with. We had to create pods. So before, if you had one home care aide who might have 2 or 3 different clients, now we had to create one-on-one relationships because we had to ensure that people within the household were only reacting with one-on-one clients, right? We couldn't afford to expose one client with another client who wouldn't know where their aide went or other family members went. They could be exposed to the virus. So overnight, everything became electronic, everything became digital. We had to remold the way we did assignments. It was the wildest thing. And like I said, unfortunately, a lot of companies in this field didn't make it. But we were one of the few ones who survived. And keep in mind, when COVID first hit, it was the nursing homes that it hit first.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
It was the nursing homes. So you had the flight from the nursing homes of people who were saying, hey, I need to get grandma, grandpa out because people are dying here. We need to get them back home. So for us, it was an opportunity to, like I said, most people failed, but Moravia during that time, I think because of quality and service and word of mouth, we actually grew during that time when we continue to grow. Again, because of the quality of service and people knowing what we stand for. I hope we're not going to see this again, but with this Delta variant, there's no telling. Again, I do urge people to get the vaccine because we don't want to get locked down again. But I see the government maybe mandating another lockdown, but I don't see the population adhering to it. I don't see them obeying because people are tired, right? They barely want to wear masks. I mean, how are you going to get them to lock down again? That's not going to happen.
That makes 2 of us. So I had COVID as well back in December, and so I was blessed to only be bedridden at home for a few days.
Right.
I lost the taste, lost the smell. That so not considered, I guess, a long hauler. However, there's certain things that still to this day I'm like, some of it has to do with weight as well. But you go from the basement to the second floor after washing clothes or something, you're a bit out of breath. Those types of things still happen. But I am vaccinated. Most of my family is vaccinated. We're working on another half of the family. I'm sure my mom's watching, and she's vaccinated, and others. But there's a push. I mean, and as they say, if you're not doing it for yourself, do it for your loved ones, those that you're going to come in contact with that you might love one day.
Right.
So, again, with that being said, that health crisis, I wanted you to speak to that, and I'm glad, of course, that you're here. You're blessed. There's a lot of family, both family and friends that that I have that did not make it to this point because COVID. They did not survive their COVID diagnosis and ailments. So it is real. It is serious. I consider it not robbery, as I say, that we are blessed to still be here, talking about a possible next wave that we are vaccinated in preparation for, but understanding that there's still a long, long way to go, not only as business, but as citizens overall. So for us to be able to do our part, I think it is incumbent of us to at least consider, if not for ourselves, for those that we may be coming in contact with, not trying to push it one way or the other for religious reasons or whatever people may have. The vaccine, but that the old experimental piece. As I said, we talked Frank on this show, no pun intended, Frank. But you know, the thing that got me to really, aside from wanting to be around my mother and grandmother, um, was they were giving it to white people, nurses and doctors first. I was like, there's no way they're not gonna kill them first and leave us here with nobody.
That's right.
I was like, okay, then there was no guarantee they was giving us the same thing and all that. And then we started talking with professionals.
Right.
And then we started really having in-depth conversations with individuals that were really in the medical field.
Right.
From Penn State Health, for example, from UPMC, and other places, AmeriHealth Caritas, and of course, when they are saying here are mandates or this is what you need to make sure you can still be in a position to serve the community.
Right.
It became more clear, I'll say, where the direction I was going to go. So I continue to present individuals like yourself and others that are professionals in the healthcare field so that people can make educated and more informed decisions for themselves and their families. So with that, I'll give you the last word, my fellow MLK Leadership Development.
First of all, I want to say what's up to Leland Nelson. He's in the comments. That's MLK graduate. He's been riding with me from the beginning. What up, Leland? I see you in there, brother. Great dude. Delaware State in the house. But to also piggyback on what you said about the vaccine, when we talk about the most common, the Tuskegee experiment, we all should remember that wasn't them giving us vaccines. That was them withholding vaccines.
That's right.
So they were studying this without giving us the medicine. What you said is right. They are not going to give it to themselves and kill themselves off, right? So this hesitancy we have, keep in mind, during the Tuskegee experiment, they were withholding medicine. They weren't giving it to us. So this vaccine is out there. I need everybody to go out there. You need to live, yo. I'm trying to tell you, this COVID-19 thing is like the angel of death. Like in the Bible, it's sweeping the land. You need to hug your mother. You need to hug your grand. You need to live to see that. So if you're out there, please, please, please get the vaccine, right? Even in the wilderness, God had Moses put up the snake, the bronze snake. And if you looked upon the snake, you survived, right? The bronze serpent. I feel like God has given us this gift of life. Let's not perish for lack of knowledge. I'm close on scripture. The Bible says my people perish for lack of knowledge, right? So he who has an ear, let him listen. So listen to us. If you hear my voice, get vaccinated as soon as you can. Karl, God bless you, man. Thank you.
God bless you as well. There's nothing more. I can't close out after you done closed out with scripture. We're just not going to pass the plate right now. But at any rate, major love for you. Very proud of you. Any way we can be helpful. It's an open seat here, open invitation. Anything we can do to support you and your endeavors, with regards to the company, organization where you're growing to next, sign us up. And again, just thank you for taking the time. And again, for those of you who are joining us here, Moravia.
There you go.
Health Services. Dr. Frank Igwe was our guest today. Look him up. Don't be a stranger. A source of information, knowledge, and resources. Thank you again for joining us. Shout out, of course, to the control room, Chad, Scott, the Lewis brothers. Thank you for all that you do, making us look good on this side of the camera. We'll see you next time and Seat at the Table, hosted by yours truly, Karl Singleton. Stay well. Hello, and welcome to another episode of A Seat at the Table, hosted by yours truly, Karl Singleton. Here at A Seat at the Table, we pride ourselves on bringing those with connections to resources or individuals to those connections to those resources to the table. We, of course, are organic in our conversation, and we want to make sure that the people that we introduce our viewers to clearly understand that they are a resource to fill a need, that void of a need for our community and those onlookers and supporters that we have on our show. Today, of course, again, we have one of those guests here in studio with us. the successful Dauphin County Democratic nominee for Dauphin County Judge of Elections, Miss Latasha C. Williams. So welcome back again.
Thank you so much.
Victorious in the primary. It is, like I said before, is one thing to run, to aspire to run, but once you win or make it to the next level and prepare to govern or to oversee, in this case, courts and issues, that is a whole different ball game. So introduce yourself, reintroduce yourself to the audience, and tell us a bit about what the primary was like for you.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Mr. Singleton, for having me back. And it's actually nice to be in the studio in person. When you've had me as a guest in the past, we were virtual, due to the restraints from COVID. But it's so nice to be here in person. I am Latasha C. Williams. I am your Democratic nominee for Judge of the Dauphin County Court of Common Pleas. And I could not have done that without your support, you just providing this platform so that I could have a voice and have a vehicle by which to reach the voters because we still, had a lot of constraints because of COVID-19. And so that made this process very difficult. Um, the process sort of starts in February. That's when the petition signing period opens up. And so all candidates who were looking to see their name on the May 18th ballot um, had to go out into the community and ask registered voters from their party to sign their petition so that we could get our names on the ballot. And the seat that I was running for is a seat where we can cross file, meaning I could petition for signatures of voters who belong to the opposing party because I am a registered Democrat. And so I sought signatures from Democratic voters as well as Republican voters in 30-degree weather at night when it was dark outside because, in those days, it gets dark around 4:30, 5 o'clock p.m. And so as a full-time prosecutor in York County, I would work during the day and then at night, I would leave and hit the road and come home to Dauphin County and start knocking on doors. And of course, I had support from so many people. The Democratic Party helped me get signatures. My campaign manager, Jamie Johnson, she's been awesome. So many people, and I don't like to name drop because you're always going to leave someone out, but so many people circulated petitions on my behalf, and so I'm so grateful for that. As far as getting the Republican signatures, I had to do the bulk of that work on my own. And so that was very challenging, but I met a lot of nice people from all walks of life, from both parties while doing it. And so as I just indicated, I am a prosecutor, but for many years I worked as an advocate, helping people who were wrongly convicted. I would help with investigating their cases, helping their families raise money so that they could hire competent legal counsel to push their appeals in court. Um, I would help them track down witnesses and just do everything that I could possibly do to help right a wrong. And so I did that for almost 20 years. And I have a very varied background. I was a high school Spanish teacher in Philadelphia for a couple of years. I was an advocate for youth in Philadelphia, caught up in the juvenile justice system. And that really ties into what I'm doing now
And
as
that's
a
what I was just
York
going to
County
say. So
prosecutor.
yeah, so you have a plethora of experiences. It's almost as if you have returned where you belong. So talk about your current role because you were once in that prosecutorial role as it stood as the adult side in defending and or assisting through volunteerism as well as through your day to day commitments on the adult side.
Mhm.
But now we know one of the best ways to curb reentry is to have no entry. And so you're at a point now where it's almost full circle. So proactive as a Spanish teacher and in the field of education. But now, even when some of our youth fall victim to community, to circumstances, to environmental pressures, external variables, etc., there still needs to be that advocacy space there. There still needs to be that professional service rendered for those individuals who otherwise who may not have those resources to to buy their way out of things. Because we
Yes.
do know, and you don't have to go into this. This is part of our theme, here with the show is one of our themes since we began is talking about living in two Americas. So I don't want you to touch on that. But what I'm going to say is you're now almost full circle
Mhm.
back home with the young people. And what has that experience been like for you? And how long have you been there?
Yes, well, I've been prosecuting now for 2 years. And I was thrilled just a couple of months ago when I was handpicked to move over into our juvenile unit. And it was because, my office knows my background. They know my passion for justice, my passion for juveniles and juvenile justice. And so I saw it as a great opportunity to, like you said, just make this whole thing full circle and help out our young people. We're very big on diversion. And if we can help a young person avoid getting a record, or even avoid the experience of upgrading to the adult criminal justice system. That's what we do. And so I feel fortunate to be a part of that process.
So part of like diversionary programs, or those who may be hearing that term for the first time, what do you mean by diversion or diversionary programming that's out there, best practice,
Sure.
etc.?
There are alternatives to incarceration. Um, Not everyone, in my opinion, belongs in jail, but there are some people who do need to take a time out because they're just simply not fit to be amongst the rest of us at that particular time until they get themselves straightened out. Um, so with children, there are so many studies out there that show that children are amenable to change. You're not the same person that you were when you were 12 years old.
Mhm.
I know I am not. You're not
Next
the
two of
same.
us.
And I'm kind of glad I'm not. But, I'm not the same person I was when I was 18 or when I was 22. And so there are diversionary programs where we can steer children in a different path from incarceration, where they can do informal probation. They can perform community service. Perhaps they need a drug and alcohol evaluation. Perhaps they need just a mentor, someone that they can have as an additional support or resource in addition to their family. Um, Perhaps they need counseling, they need therapy. And so it's more of a treatment approach
Right.
as opposed to a punitive or punishment
And
approach.
so that brings up an interesting topic, that we also try to make sure we were sharing and that has been historically in urban areas, historically, particular urban areas, taboo, which is that mental health piece. And what we found a lot in the field of education or just doing some of our discussion around social justice and equity and inclusion is that a lot of things revert back to the mental health. Now, I'm not asking you to speak as a mental health
Mhm.
expert whatsoever, but what is your take on ensuring that the mental health needs of individuals, whether adult and or children, are addressed at the same time, ensuring that there is equity with regards to how punitive one system should and or may be.
I feel we absolutely have to address mental health needs. When you look at cases that come before the courts, whether it's a criminal case on the adult side or the juvenile side, um, or whether it's maybe a dependency matter where a child needs to be removed from the home for various different reasons. Oftentimes, you will find that there are mental health issues that need to be addressed and are sometimes the root cause of the criminal or delinquent behavior
Mhm.
that you see um, being acted out. So, that's very important. And I think that we need to prioritize funding for mental health services so that people can get the help that they need.
So what we'll do now is we'll take a quick commercial break. Uh, and on the other side of this, we'll continue the conversation along because, as we stated earlier, the primary was just the beginning. Uh, so We're moving into a phase where we're saying a lot of people see this period as a dormant time, but you have not
No.
slowed down whatsoever. So let's talk about on the other side of this commercial a bit about what you've been doing since May, if you've taken a break
Okay.
whatsoever. And because I see that you're still obviously active in the communities, plural, not only during your day to day work as it relates to your 9 to 5, but still landing back here home and on weekends and
Yes.
after 5 and things like that. So we'll talk right here with Dauphin County Common Pleas Court nominee Miss Latasha C. Williams on the other side of this commercial. Our guest here at a seat at the table. Okay, hello, and welcome back. We are here again with our guest, Latasha C. Williams, candidate for Dauphin County Common Judge of Common Pleas. We talked about coming out of the primary back in May, and now a lot of us in the community in the political realm call this lame duck session or dormant session, whatever you may have. However, for the candidate that has been successful or candidates have been successful in terms of moving on to the primary, it is anything but. And I know you have not allowed any grass to grow under your feet because we've seen you, in the community. So let us know what you were determined to do post primary, leading into and through this dormant season that some people think they can rest in.
Yeah, it's I don't even know how to describe the entire process, but um, you know, thinking back to May the 18th, I was not sure how that evening was going to go. Um, and we had like a very small watch party and some volunteers, some very dedicated, committed volunteers. My family, we got together and we, waited as the numbers were coming in, and it was just so overwhelming to see, how well we did in the
Mhm.
primary. And so the very next day, I slept all day. I slept all day. I was just so overwhelmed with emotion and just I was extremely exhausted. And then the following day, that's when things started to set in, and you've got to start collecting yard signs, which we had
There
hundreds
you
of
go.
yard signs
There you go.
everywhere. So just
Not
like,
everybody collected their yard signs, by the way. Shout out to all those who ran and collected their yard signs. There's a lot of you still need to pick your yard signs up in the city. I'm sorry.
oh,
Yeah. You're not one of them.
I hope not. So, there were a couple of us who, went out and distributed yard signs, and I tried to take pictures when I was in different places throughout the county where I had no idea where I was. I tried to take pictures of those intersections so that I would know where to return to collect the signs.
Right.
So I hope that I got most of mine up. Um, but I really didn't have an opportunity to rest. I did just get together with some very close friends, and we celebrated turning 40 this year. And so we took a quick little trip to Florida, and that was really nice. But outside of that, it's been business as usual because it's important for me that the voters know who I am. I want to remain connected to the community. I want people to be able to match my face with my name and with who I am. And now it's an opportunity for our libertarians and our independents and Green Party members to have an opportunity to engage with me because now they can become a part of the process because they'll be able to vote in the general election on November 2nd. And so um, I'm out there in the community. Let's see, August 22nd, I'll be teaming up with Loop BNG, which is a nonprofit that does so much good work for kids in our community. They'll be at the William Howard Day Homes. And for those who don't know, I'm also a licensed cosmetologist. And so I'll be on scene doing haircuts for kids who, want their back to school haircuts or little girls who need their trims or what have you. And so, I'll be in the community engaging as often as I possibly can.
Shout out to Duke. Shout out to Mr. and Mrs. Burnett.
Mhm.
Left Out Boys and Girls Organization. Of course, we do know them very well, operating out of the Allen's Hill Community Center in conjunction with TLC work based training. So that's definitely some great community connections there. Mr. and Mrs. Burnett are just stellar with regards to serving the public, serving the community, real community advocates. So you couldn't have picked a better organization to be associated with through your volunteerism, with your side hat
Yeah.
of a licensed cosmetologist. So you learn something new every day on Seat at the Table. We could have taken bets, and I don't think that would have come up. But thanks for sharing. You heard it here
Absolutely.
first.
That's right.
So other things though, your overall platform is predicated upon what?
Fairness. I think it's important that people believe that they can enter into the courthouse and have a fair shot at having someone who is impartial and fair minded listen to their case. Um, I think it's important that the bench reflects the community that it serves. A full complement of the Dauphin County Court of Common Pleas consists of 10 judges. So currently there are 9 judges, and my opponent and I are running for the one open seat. But of the 9 judges, 8 of the judges are men, and there's only one woman. Um, that is completely imbalanced, and it does not reflect Dauphin County. Um, there's never been an African American woman to serve on the bench. And so I think people want to feel as though someone who is fair minded, just, who brings diverse experiences with them to the bench, um, is postured to hear their case and make a decision based on having that diversified experience. And I've worked with and for people from all walks of life, from all backgrounds. Um, I would consider myself as a servant leader. In order to lead, you have to serve. And that's what I have done my entire life. And so I think that's what people are looking for.
And so when you talk about not only reflecting diversity, obviously, and I'll say it, there's never been a black woman, judge. There's never been a black Democratic Dauphin County judge elected. The row offices in not in perpetuity, historically, have been dominated by Republicans and just recently Democrats. So we have a real problem in Dauphin County with reflecting, and these are my words, reflecting diversity of the entire county. So it is unfair and not and pretty partial to be represented have been represented historically by white male Republicans on the county level at every office. And so our push is to make sure that we introduce you to viable options, candidates throughout the county, individuals who are really working, and that's part of the reason why you're here. And this is, my from my seat at the table. What we're saying is, you as the onlookers and viewers of this alternative media outlet need to be introduced to individuals that are putting themselves out there in the forefront to bring a sense of a reflection of the full complement of our county, automatically showing up quality and qualified. Uh, you need to clearly understand that you have viable options to whoever is traditionally on the ballot, and who's coming, as I say, Johnny come lately, as opposed to being out here doing the real work in the community, living off of coattails as opposed to hard work. And that's my spiel. And with that being said, what inspired you to want to run for county judge?
I've I won't say always wanted to be a judge, but when I received the message that I was to go into the field of law, um, I knew I wanted to be a judge. I would say probably dating back 20 years ago,
Okay.
when I was working as a legal intern in Philadelphia County for the Defender Association of Philadelphia. And my supervising attorney um, was the attorney in charge of drug treatment court in Philadelphia. And so the judge who presided over drug treatment court, Judge Lou Presenza, he was just very remarkable to watch. And so I would observe him, and I would observe his compassion towards people with substance abuse issues. But he could also be very stern as well. And so I had a lot of respect for him. And I said, you know what? When I grow up, I want to be like him. I want to do that job. So I think that's where the seeds were first sown. And then as I continued on throughout the course of my legal career, I met other awesome judges. The late Linda Faye Anderson, she was on the municipal court in Philadelphia. Very awesome lady, and a couple of others. But then I encountered judges who um, did things that I did not like and things that I did not think were fair. Um, and so that also was inspirational because I said, you know, I want to be in a position where I never treat someone in that way and that I do the exact opposite of what I just observed that particular judge do. So that's where it came from.
Okay. And so you were talking, and it was piercing to my ears just now for you to talk about the men and a couple of women, you know, that you viewed as aspirational in terms of their positions. What does it mean for you to be in that position now, and that there's young people looking at you?
It's scary.
Is it? That's honest. Hey. Yeah.
It is. Hmm. Because I don't really see myself as doing anything extra or special. Um, I am a spiritual person, and so I just feel like I'm walking in the path that was carved out for me. Um, and I feel like it's just the next natural thing because truth be told, I had no expectations or interest in becoming a prosecutor initially. When I enrolled in law school, which I did later in life, you know, I sort of took a scenic route, but it was the route I was supposed to take. I thought that I would become a defense attorney and advocate for criminal defendants, but that wasn't the path I was supposed to take. And so um, it's nice for younger people to, younger people, whether they're, you know, a part of the delinquency system or at risk or not, but to see someone who is pursuing their dreams. And, you know, there were so many obstacles along the way, which I could write a book. I actually am
Maybe
writing
do
a
that
book,
one day,
but so many obstacles along the way. But when you want something really badly, you will do whatever it takes.
So you say, and that's so being a prosecutor. Let's talk about that for a second, because a lot of times, and I'm speaking specifically to Black community in particular. Um, a lot of times, it's like the system's already hard enough. It's already imbalanced, you know. And these are my words: white supremacy, oppression, this, that, and the other that we deal with every day. Questions about the police and the justice system overall. What was it like being an African American or Black woman prosecutor in a system that's perceived to already be heavy handed? How was that balance? You know, and if not, if it wasn't, I mean, that's fine too. But there's a lot of questions because you hit on it. You initially thought you were going to be defense attorney. Okay, what was the shift? And like you say, divine intervention, or was just your call and your time? That's cool, but you know, that's a lot of times those are people's questions. At least you know that I'm around. It's like if you are encountering a brother or a sister and they're a prosecutor, there's a second look, so to speak, you know. But
There can be. So I come from a law enforcement family. I have an aunt who retired as a captain from the Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department. I have a cousin who's currently an officer with Metropolitan Police. I have a That's United States Armed Forces. My
Mhm.
father, cousins, uncles, former Marines, and so I
Better
come.
not say former Marines, but
Oh, excuse
say
me,
Marine.
Marines.
I made that mistake before to my uncle.
Forgive me.
Yeah.
My cousin actually, he's still active in the Corps, but yes. So I come from a law enforcement
Mhm.
family. However, my experiences have been for the most part positive
Mhm.
because I think that criminal defendants have sort of had a look of relief when they see
Mm.
me, not,
Mm.
oh, well, what are you doing working for the man?
Mm.
I've gotten that response,
Mhm.
or I've gotten, oh, so you're a DA, so you're busy locking people up.
Mhm.
And then my response to that is, no, actually, I'm busy keeping people out
Mm.
who do not belong in,
There
while seeking justice for victims
you go.
where a crime has been committed. So
And that
that's my
is the other
response to
side.
that.
And that is the other side of it. I'm glad you brought that out because while individuals are saying the system's already hard, it's not just, there is a piece that's missing. There's a victim involved.
Hmm.
And so I'm glad you highlighted that part because there are two sides to a story.
Hmm.
And oftentimes, we've done programs on here, especially dealing with sexual violence and
Hmm.
victims, etc. That we continue to push. Shout out to Jennifer Storm and her whole team, victim awareness, and others that have been on here with us. So that is of uttermost importance as well. So you may be attempted to be painted with a broad brush
Hmm.
in terms of being a prosecutor, but embedded within that umbrella, there are also that vulnerable population that's oftentimes overlooked, and so that victim awareness, the commitment to victim awareness and highlighting the need, the outpouring of concern, the resources that have to go in that direction too. You were responsible for that as well.
Oh, absolutely. We definitely cannot forget that in some instances, there are victims, and it's important that the person who inflicted the harm be held accountable,
Mhm.
um, and learn victim awareness, learn empathy, if they can, while we do our parts and I do my part in trying to make the victim whole again. Um, I've had cases that, um, I had a jury trial once. It was a husband and wife, and it was a strangulation case, and it was very sad because, um, sometimes victims aren't ready
Mhm.
to face their abuser, and sometimes they go back and they go back and they go back. But this last time, she found the strength that she needed, and we went to trial, and he was convicted by the jury. And so um, there are victims that we definitely cannot forget.
Yeah, and that's something, now you're going to be on the other side of that bench, and what is it that you bring to that seat? Um, in your 20 years of experience, your volunteerism in the community, you're working for justice, in terms of the wrongly convicted. Now you're on the side where you have the gavel. You're closer to having the gavel in your hand. Um, what is that thought process like in terms of what you're taking to that seat, to the bench, on the other side of the bench? Why is that important to you in terms of your experiences?
Well, it's important that um, judges, remain impartial, but we all bring our life experiences
Mhm.
to every situation. You just, it's impossible not to. And so I've experienced um, working on the defense side. I've experienced working on the prosecution side. I've experienced being a judicial law clerk. working directly with and for a sitting common pleas court judge. Um, and then I have experience in family law. I have experience in administrative law. And so I'll bring all of those experiences with me when I am assessing a situation that comes before me. I have a lot of experiences, positive experiences with law enforcement, but I've also experienced situations where police overstepped, where prosecutors overstepped. Now, this is in my capacity as an advocate for criminal defendants, um, and so I tend to know a lie when I hear one. And I'm not afraid to call anybody out who needs to be called out. I think one thing that makes me different and sets me apart from my opponents is that, I'm grounded here in Dauphin County. I've lived here now almost 14 years. Um, I'm not a part of the system in that way. Um, I don't have allegiances and strong bonds in terms of um, those powerful connections um, with various entities throughout the county. And I think when you have that, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but um, there's always a chance where there can be an appearance of impropriety because of those strong ties and those strong relationships. And so I don't have that. I don't want to say an outsider because I've been a part of this community. I have worked for the community. In fact, one of the cases that I was a part of was right here in the city of Harrisburg, and the case was eventually overturned, and the court determined that, um, well, it gets a little tricky, but the bottom line is these two gentlemen did not commit the murder, and were eventually, I'll put it this way, their judgments of sentence were um, overturned, and they are no longer serving a life sentence. One recently passed away, unfortunately, but so I have been a part of the community, but um, I can't be bought, and I'm not saying that
Well, no, that's you.
anyone else can be bought, but
I think you've brought up a very high level point of consideration for voters in a very eloquent way. And I I'm not running for office, so I can be less than diplomatic, and as I've been known to be. But the truth of the matter is, you know, there's something to be said when you're not rooted here on both sides, the good and the indifference, because when you are, moving at the will, when you are moving on behalf of the community, there are various ways you can go. However, if you have such strong and tight allegiance and people chose you for the position or ordained you as next, um, there's a lot that you may owe later in these elected positions. And these again are my words. And it is, we come from a long line here throughout Dauphin County of, nepotism and perceived pay to play and, a plethora of things from facing bankruptcy to school districts being overtaken, etc. So what I'm hearing is a fresh face, what I'm a fresh voice. What I'm seeing is a fresh face. What I'm saying is there's an alternative to the traditional, here's your candidate, vote straight ticket, do this, that, and the other. There's an individual who is in various media outlets, in person outlets as well, and based in the community that you can actually touch. And so, what we're thinking is similar to what you're saying. You're here, you want to make sure there's a face with a name and with signs, and that's how campaigning is done. That's how votes are won. That's how you remain seared into people's minds with regards to not only your message but through your deeds and actions, and being responsive. and respectful and resourceful to and for the community. So, on that, we'll take another quick commercial break, and we'll return to continue our conversation with Miss Latasha C. Williams, Dauphin County Democratic nominee for Court of Common Pleas. Okay, and we are back again as we prepare to wind down with our guest here, Miss Latasha C. Williams, Dauphin County nominee for judge of Common Pleas Court. Um, One thing that I'll say is we know that campaigns are not cheap. We know there's, aside from sweat equity and voting, there's a lot that goes into, signage and websites and paraphernalia regarding getting the word out there. If people want to find out how they could donate, if people want to find out how to remain engaged with you and the campaign, how do they do that?
They can go to my website, which is latasha4countyjudge.com. And that's all together, one word, LATASHAFORCOUNTYJUDGE. Latasha4countyjudge.com. And we have a really large presence on Facebook and Instagram. So you can tap into us any of those ways.
And that's, and there's also, that we ask all of our guests, because we continue to play this on Facebook, so they can go back and watch it. There's also uploaded to YouTube. So we ask our guests that after the show, tonight, this evening, tomorrow, whatever, if you go on there, you see some questions, that you interact. So that's be another platform for you to visit. I'm sure there'll be questions that our viewers have. Again, this is, it's the age of, I watch what I want to watch when I want to watch it. So
Yes.
it'll be, some that watch this later. Though we're doing it live now, there'll be others that watch this later, and they do interact. We still continue to get messages about our guests, post show, maybe a day, 2, 3, a week later, and we still like to keep you engaged. I think it's something that word of mouth really helps with. So again, what's your website again? And yeah,
It's www.latasha4countyjudge.com.
okay. And your platform again, your elements, how you reach out to the community, why you're the person who we would like to see or should like to see in that seat at Dauphin County.
The voters should want to see me as their next judge of the Dauphin County Court of Common Pleas, because I have the most qualified experience. Or I should say, now that there are two of us, the more qualified experience. And I will be fair, and I will expect for anyone who were to come before me to hold me accountable. A judge is not above the law. An attorney is not above the law. And so I would expect to be held to the same standard as everyone else. But people would know that, or should feel confident that even if the case doesn't go their way, that they were heard before someone who was fair, and someone, again, who has the varied experiences necessary, as well as the knowledge. In order to be a judge on the Court of Common Pleas, you have to be an attorney, a member of the Bar of the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, and you have to be a resident of Dauphin County. So I meet those
all the requirements. You meet all the requirements
there. And
so we will see you on the ballot. So you won't be.
Absolutely. So you'll see me on the ballot. And there's, just one other opponent. We were successful in the primary. And so we won 45% of the vote in a 4-way race. I'm very proud of that. And again, could not have done that without everyone. And so as we move forward to the general election, whether people vote by mail or whether they are in person voting at the precinct on November the 2nd, we need you to come out. We need you to spread the word to a neighbor, to your family, to your friends. This year is not a presidential year, but it's a very important election for our judiciary. Each level of judicial authority is on the ballot. The Court of Common Pleas, which is the race I'm running in, and then our two appellate level courts are on the ballot. That's the Superior Court of Pennsylvania and the Commonwealth Court of Pennsylvania. And then our highest court in our Commonwealth, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. And so it's very important that people exercise the right to vote because these seats are, well, my seat in particular, I can't speak for the others, it's a 10-year term.
Mhm.
And that's a very long time for someone to be in a position to make decisions that affect your everyday life.
Right.
At the Court of Common Pleas, judges hear criminal matters, civil matters, matters involving juvenile delinquency. So, kids who get criminal charges, dependency matters, children who are in homes where there are problems in the home and they may need to be removed from the home or going into foster care for various reasons. The Court of Common Pleas presides over matters where there's a dispute over a will. So it's very important that you come out and vote your conscience. Take a look at my opponent, do your research. There's plenty of information out there on both of us and determine who you want to see presiding over your case potentially.
Okay. And I don't have much more to add aside from our congratulatory remarks on your past victory in the primary and looking forward to having you back on, as well as your opponent, for a
Awesome.
discussion in terms of who the best candidate is. We've heard from one thus far, and so it is a he, and so he will be invited back again as we've done in the primary, where we have opened the table for all to participate to state their case and why they should serve Dauphin County as a whole, and or whether that's school board or any other elected official. Everyone who will be on that ballot in November, November 2nd, will be invited here to a seat at the table so that they can present themselves to those viewers that are watching weekly, daily, or that might even just happen to be scrolling past and notice a seat at the table or Music Man Multimedia Studios. So with that, I'd just like to thank you again uh, for joining us as you continue your robust, we'll say, campaign as you move closer towards obtaining that seat that you're working so diligently for. So again, Ms. Latasha C. Smith Williams, who is running for Dauphin County Judge Court of Common Pleas, was our guest here today. And again, you can find more research. We did run her website across the screen. We'll continue to do that. Look her up, come out, support. If you have questions, please don't hesitate to put those questions and or remarks in our Facebook comment section and or in YouTube. So any parting shots that you'd like to have?
Thank you so much. Again, I appreciate the opportunity and just for you providing this platform so that we have another mechanism and vehicle by which to reach the community. So thank you so much. And again, thank you to everyone who helped us get this far, whether you signed my petition, whether you displayed my yard sign in your yard. And then, of course, if you voted for me, I thank you so much. And just really quickly, and during the primary, two of my opponents who didn't, who were not successful, they got a lot of votes. And I'm hopeful that the voters who supported them, now that we're now down to two candidates, will strongly consider me as we move forward to the general.
Okay. You have another organization out there that you might be able to depend on as well, right?
Mm,
You might be
do
able.
I?
Do you? Are you in any kind of sorority or anything?
Oh, yes. Well, I am a very proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. It's been 15 years. My chapter of initiation is the Omega Omega chapter in Philadelphia. And I have lots of love for our local chapter here in Harrisburg. And so I am hopeful that my Greek sisters and brothers, and not just from AKA, but the entire Divine Nine, will get behind our efforts and help us get to and across the finish line.
I heard a call to action there. And with that being said, I just like to again thank the control room, the Lewis brothers, and as always, Chad Scott for making us look great on this side of the camera and for this show to run smoothly. Again, we thank all of our viewers, supporters, and sharers. We thank you for joining in for A Seat at the Table, hosted by yours truly, Karl Singleton. We'll see you in the next episode.